Hey everybody, I am Leland the Realtor, and in this video we are going to cover inspections, objections, resolutions, and withdrawals. This video is for informational purposes only and is based on my personal experience. I am not a lawyer, I am simply a realtor, so for your contract, please consult your own realtor, your own professional, or your own lawyer. So for us, we're going to scroll down to paragraph 21, which is the paragraph that outlines our inspections and in fact gives us rights for inspections. Inspections on paragraph 21. The parties are encouraged to employ competent and, where appropriate, licensed professionals to perform all agreed upon inspections of the property. This is for the buyer's due diligence, being a buyer needs to investigate the property to make sure they are comfortable with the current physical condition or any legal, practical, and or technical implications of the home. So when purchasing a home, it is the seller's duty to disclose, but it is also the buyer's duty to inspect the property to make sure they are in fact comfortable purchasing that property. For number 2 here, it is the buyer's right to conduct inspections unless it is waived. It is very rarely waived, but it is in fact the buyer's right to conduct any inspections they feel necessary. And there's a large number of inspections that can be completed. So from here, there's just a few here, home, electrical, heating, air conditioning, plumbing, roof, structural, lead-based paint, well pumps, well equipment, water yielding tests. This is not even all the inspections that are available, but the buyer does in fact have the right to conduct any inspections they deem necessary in order to purchase the house within reason. Square footage. Square footage is very important. This is typically measured by an appraiser, or you can measure it yourself. If you have 10 people measure a home, you are going to get 10 different numbers. So it is an approximate square footage, and you as the buyer need to be comfortable with the square footage that you are purchasing. Seller's duty to disclose. It is in fact the seller's responsibility to disclose any adverse material defects known by the seller. This is typically done in a 14-page document called the seller's disclosure and is delivered to the buyer for review. Availability of utilities for inspections. Most of the time, the seller still owns the property, so they are going to be responsible for the utilities of the home. They're going to need to keep all utilities on because when the inspector comes by to flip some light switches, they're going to need some electricity to make sure those light switches work. For a gas line, they want to make sure the heater is working, or the water heater is working, or in fact there is hot water, and of course water itself. You need to have that on so they can test drains and so on. Inspector selection. Because this is the buyer's due diligence, it is the buyer's right to select all inspectors. It is not the seller's. A seller can make recommendations, a realtor can make recommendations, but ultimately it is up to the buyer of the home to select the inspector that they trust. Scrolling down here, we're going to skip E for now. F, inspection deadlines. Because time is of the essence, most contracts are 30 to 45 days. You need to get these inspections done as soon as possible. So to make sure they're done as soon as possible, there is a delivery deadline. This is when all inspections should be completed and reports delivered to the buyer. And then the date by this date right here, or so many days after the date of acceptance. Objection deadlines. Objections to be delivered to seller no later than this date or this number of days. An objection is, hey, will you make these repairs? The inspector found XYZ, and we would like you to repair XYZ. Resolution deadline is a written agreement for resolutions of all objections to be agreed upon no later than this date or so many days from acceptance. So if you request repairs from the seller must agree to those repairs or not agree to those repairs by this date. And if you guys are not able to come to a resolution, that's when we get into this business right here. So buyer's objections and termination. If buyer has reasonable objections to any report or unsatisfactory condition disclosed by any document, survey, ILR, and or inspection, then no later than the applicable objection deadline, buyers may request that seller cure buyer's objections, or buyer may terminate this agreement. So it is in fact the buyer's right to ask a seller to conduct repairs, give them some sort of credit, or terminate the agreement. Okay? And very important, if buyer timely elects to terminate, earnest money, if delivered, shall be refunded to the buyer. Very important sentence right there. If buyer timely elects to terminate, earnest money, if delivered, shall be refunded to the buyer. And buyer's failure to deliver to seller his objections or termination by the objection deadline shall be deemed a waiver of buyer's rights to object to the document, survey, and/or inspections, and waiver of the applicable contingency. So this sentence says that if you do not make objections, then you are waiving this contingency. Resolutions. If a buyer requests a cure to the objections, sellers may agree to the buyer's request to cure, provide an alternative cure, so I'll repair this but not that, or I will give you this money, or other offer, or refuse to correct or address buyer's objections. Just saying no, like this is how I'm going to sell a house, it's as is, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make any repairs. Buyer may not withdraw his objections and terminate the agreement prior to seller's response. However, if buyer and seller are unable to reach a resolution to buyer's objections by the resolution deadline, then this agreement shall terminate, and earnest money, if delivered, shall be refunded to the buyer. So if you guys are unable to come to an agreement, then this agreement shall terminate. No warning needed. On that day, if it's not resolved, the agreement is terminated. Okay? If both buyer and seller agree to extend this deadline, then we can extend the deadline, but as this contract is written, this agreement shall terminate, and the earnest money, if delivered, is refunded to the buyer. Objection completion. So if the seller and buyer agree that the seller will perform any repairs, they will do so no later than X number of days prior to settlement signing date, which is the closing day. So typically this is about 2 days. Every contract's different, so you really need to review, but this is how many days it's going to be prior. And if it's not done, that's considered a default. Buyer's entry. It is the seller's responsibility to provide reasonable access to the buyer and buyer's inspectors. If a seller is saying, no, you may not do inspections, or no, you may not come into the house to inspect the home as agreed on, then that would be the seller violating this paragraph right here, which is a default on the agreement. So make sure to provide reasonable access to the home for the buyer and the buyer's inspector. This, of course, is a video just for informational purposes only. If you have any questions, please consult your realtor, please consult your lawyer, or you can consult me as well if I am, in fact, your realtor. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.